Doop, doop, doop. Doop, doop, doop.
You know, I recorded that.
No.
Do you even know what episode number we're on?
No.
Oh, you are so out of it.
Wait, 50. It's 50 something.
Okay. All right, that's the easy part.
7. 57.
No, 53.
Dang.
We opened up this year with episode number 50.
Did we?
Yeah. That was number 50.
Why do I feel like we recorded so much more last?
And then with Michael Layer, that was split into two. So that was 51 and 52. And this is 53.
Let's go.
3, 2, and 1. Welcome to episode 53 of Black, White, and Blue in the South, the podcast discussing Democratic politics with a Southern flair. I'm Bill Kimler.
I'm Jamil Brooks.
And we're coming to you from Greenwood, South Carolina, a little red county in a very red state. If you like what you hear and think others ought to be listening as well, then please do us a solid and leave a rating for our show. Write just a little review. Tell your friends about us. Interact with us on social media. Or better yet.
Oh my God.
It's like you forget we have this segment every episode and you're caught off
every
guard.
time you say it, I get nervous. I'm thinking, what is he going to say this time?
Or better yet, let's start preparing for the eventual ascendancy to power of Elon Musk's little boy, whose name is Xashazii.
My God.
He's got in his name, you know that A that's smushed up against an E that's slanted is like just one character? It's called an ash, right? That's in this kid's name. X-A dash, and it's X little I. Anyhow, we're going to call him Little X.
Okay.
Little X stole the show.
Indeed.
At a very bizarre press conference that was recently held at the Oval Office. Let's hear it explained by TikTok sensation Tizzy Ent.
Okay.
You know, I wasn't even going to post on this, and then I saw some clips that changed my mind, and I'll show you those in a moment. But first, Elon Musk yesterday, along with his son Little X, held a press conference in the Oval Office to discuss what Doge is doing, all while Donald Trump watched on silently from his cuck chair. And in the aftermath, one of Elon's fanboys shared this tweet that Elon reposted. It says, "History repeats itself," and it shows two images. The first image is a pretty iconic image of JFK Jr. playing underneath his dad's desk while he worked in the Oval Office. And the second is Little X seemingly bored out of his mind, crawling around on the floor while Donald Trump pontificates about what he liked watching from said cuck chair. But I can point out at least one glaring difference between these two situations. JFK Jr., as I recall, never had criticisms of his father while the press was there. Little X, on the other hand, has a lot to say, and there was a hot mic that caught some of it. So first is this little gem.
To restore democracy. This may seem like, well...
You heard that too, right? You're not the president, you need to go away. I'll play the clip a second time. Just, you watch and tell me if that's what he said.
To restore democracy. This may seem like...
That's what he said, but I'll go one better. Because he also said this.
The prices from one year to the next are the same. And they're mortgage...
That one's clear as day. He says, "I want you to shut your mouth up." And there's already people who are like, out of the mouth of babes. But let me just put this out there for your consideration. A child this young doesn't have this profound moment where he tells off Trump. He just repeats things he's heard. So if he says you're not really the president, chances are someone has said that around him and he's repeating it. When he says, "I want you to shut your mouth up," he's either heard someone say that to someone else or someone has said that to him. And he's repeating it. Either scenario is pretty disturbing. But perhaps the question we should be asking is the same one that Shea Jordan Smith asked on Twitter, which is, why the is Elon Musk doing press briefings in the White House from the Oval Office? He is not an elected official. Why is he holding court in the Oval Office? Nothing about this is normal or good.
The last sentence sums it up. Nothing about this.
Nope, not at all. You know, it's really worth watching this video. I understand the audio of the little kid was tough to hear, but you can see the video and you can see him mouthing these words. If you want to watch it, check our show notes. We'll have a link to Tizzy Ent's video where you can see it for yourself, or flip on over to our YouTube channel where you can see this whole episode live and just see what a mess Jamil and I are in person.
Yeah.
But in fairness, and I want to follow up with this because we are a fact-based podcast.
Yeah.
There is a rather convincing argument being made out there that the boy was actually talking to a photographer who was to Trump's left that was out of the camera shot. And somebody who was in that press room reported that an AP photographer had circled around to the other side of Donald Trump where that boy was and was taking pictures. And the boy was talking to the photographer saying, "You're not the president, get out of here and shut your mouth," whatever it was he
But
said.
that doesn't even make sense because there's a whole room of photographers there.
There is, but this one had come close to the desk to get like a special angle while the rest of the photographers were on the other side of the room. You watch that video again, I can honestly see the boy is kind of looking past Trump. He's not looking directly at him. He's looking past him, but I wouldn't have noticed it otherwise.
Okay.
So I do think that there's a case there that maybe this wasn't exactly what was seen, but still, there are so many things wrong about this whole press conference to begin with. And let's not lose sight of the fact that, and I'm going to quote an article from the Straits Times, quote, "The preschooler was also seen picking his nose and wiping it on the Resolute desk, gifted to President Rutherford Hayes by Queen Victoria in 1880 and used by nearly every president since."
Yes.
There's the respect for the Oval Office that we are all looking for.
Yes. 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 I saw that part.
Let us know what you think by dropping us a note at blackwhiteblueinthesouth@gmail.com, or find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Mastodon, and Blue Sky. But you won't find us on that platform owned by a Nazi-saluting billionaire. No, sir, no, you won't.
Not us.
So go check us out. We share video clips of our episodes and news articles that'll enrich what you hear today. So look at those award-winning show notes.
Yeah.
I don't know what award we've won, but they are award-winning.
We just haven't been notified yet.
Just pull that up on that little podcast app that you're listening to us on, and you'll find all of that and more.
Yeah.
We have what I think is a very interesting show lined up for us today. It's been about 3 weeks since we last recorded, and so much has happened in just 3 weeks. We also have a guest who will be joining us later. But first, we need to address some very important things that have happened since we last met. So let's start with this.
Okay.
My Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. In the most amazing moment in the history of sports, they have defeated the MAGA City Chiefs by a score of 192-10.
That's what it felt like.
And it was the most amazing game that we ever watched.
It was a good game, Bill. I was proud of them.
I was too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you caught that I had a little personal disaster occur.
Yeah, Bill, tell us about that.
So let me get you quickly caught up to speed. So I'm here in Greenwood, South Carolina. My family, my brother, sister, mother, and even my kids are in the Northeast. So I was going to travel to southern New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia. It's a Philadelphia suburb. To enjoy a Super Bowl party at my brother's house.
Ooh.
Tradition. Eagles in the Super Bowl, I go up there and we party because it's in the family. I've even had a relative play on the Philadelphia Eagles back in the 50s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Third stringer, but whatever. It's in the blood. So I start making the trip on that Saturday, and I was going to drive most of the way there, crash at a hotel overnight, be refreshed for the game on Sunday. So I am on 81 North, heading through Virginia.
Okay.
And I'm about 350 miles into the trip, and my car explodes on the highway. The engine, bang!
No.
Every light came up on the dashboard, the engine light, the pullover light, the brake light, skull and crossbones I didn't even know were there came up, everything.
The world
And I was
light.
able to maneuver my car off to the side of the road.
Yeah.
Smoke billowing out of the engine, out of the hood.
Okay.
Clanging away that there were like metal parts on metal parts just banging at each other, and the car is just dead. Dead as dead. This is
No signs of anything before this, though.
none. It was it's an older car. It was over about 10 years old. But no, it was working fine until then. And I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, my God.
Nowhere. This was a town called Natural Bridge, Virginia, 40 miles north of Roanoke, if you even know where Roanoke is.
I do know where I don't play with Roanoke. The troopers don't play.
Roanoke is nowhere.
Yeah.
This is north of nowhere.
Wow.
So this is really out. I step out of my car and I'm looking around and I'm seeing cows.
Yeah, okay.
Like just farm country. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, this is bad news because this is not something that's going to get repaired on a Sunday morning, right? Or a Saturday night. I was dead.
Wow.
And there was nowhere nearby that was civilization. I spent 4 hours in my car on the side of the road as temperatures dropped below 30 degrees. And I'm on the phone with my insurance company trying to get roadside assistance. I'm on the phone with taxi companies trying to find a cab. Uber doesn't even service that area.
Oh, my goodness.
Nobody could find a way to get to me at all. So I actually was contemplating sleeping in the car overnight.
Wow.
Problem is, and this is on me now, I keep forgetting that I live in South Carolina and the Northeast do not. So did I pack a coat when I took my trip? No, because it was 60 degrees when I left South Carolina.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I'm heading up north and I'm thinking, I'm going to be in the car the whole time. Maybe I'll get out for gas and bathroom or whatnot. But no, it was 30 degrees and I'm without a coat and I'm shivering.
On the side of the road.
Side of the road.
Bill.
And I'm telling you, the Uber app wasn't picking up anybody. Lyft wasn't picking up anybody. There were no cabs. I was Googling. Every cab company that came up was out of service or no phone number available.
Were people passing you as you were on the side of the road? You still had good traffic?
People were, oh yeah.
Okay.
Nobody was stopping because, how often would you stop?
Yeah, no,
on the
I just
highway?
wanted to see if there was still traffic.
But there was traffic.
Okay.
So I'll tell you, this is just to cut the story short. I actually got a little motel that was a mile up the road, a $50 a night motel called the Relax Inn.
Oh, yeah.
All right, this is scary area. I was able to get a reservation online. That wasn't a problem. I just wasn't going to walk there in the middle of the night on the highway. Mm-hmm. So I called the hotel and the manager picked up and I said, listen, I'm having no luck finding anybody. I'm actually praying that maybe he'll come out and get me.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody at this point. He actually had some phone numbers on standby of people I could call.
Wow.
The second number struck gold. A lovely lady came and got me, bless her heart. And her name is Debbie. Miss Debbie came.
Thank you, Miss Debbie.
She doesn't do Uber on a regular basis, but she heard my story. She says, I'm only 10 minutes away. I'll be out to the highway and get you, bring you to the hotel. So to the hotel she brought me, where I stayed for 2 days. Because nothing's open on Sunday. I couldn't get a ride. There was no rental cars in the area. I'd have to travel 40 miles to Roanoke for a rental car.
Yeah.
There's nothing open on Sundays.
Oh, my goodness.
So I watched the Super Bowl from this $50 motel. There's no restaurants or places to eat. There was a gas station, so I had gas station pizza and a Dr. Pepper. That's how I celebrated watching the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
But then they went and won.
Yeah, they won.
And they won, and suddenly the skies were brighter. On Monday, the weather was beautiful. A tow truck was able to come take me down to Roanoke, where I disposed of the car for scrap.
You just left it.
Well, no, I took it to a scrapyard and got paid cash for its weight.
Yeah, but that was your friend.
It was put it out of its misery. Time was done. So scrapyard it went and got a rental and went home. And then bought a new car a couple days later. So I'm back on the road again.
Gosh.
But yeah, that was an interesting Super Bowl that
You'll never forget that one.
I completely lived it all out online as it happened.
God.
What's the first thing that you do when your car blows up on the side of the road?
You call it the roadside assistance.
No, you post about it on Facebook.
No,
that was the first thing I did. First thing you do is you go on social media and tell everybody about what a disaster your life is, and then you call 911 or you call insurance.
Did?
Yes, of
you
course.
Post it first.
Of course. There's a sequence of events you have to follow here.
And you're out of sequence.
There's a reason I was there for 4 hours because I was busy Instagramming and TikToking my way through the emergency. Let's be real here. here.
Yeah.
But that insurance company was absolutely useless. They never did find roadside assistance.
Wow.
So I waited a couple hours for them before I had to give up and seek my own outcome. Anyhow,
Gosh, Bill.
that was exciting. So the Eagles won. And of course, to bring it back to the topic of politics, you had President Donald Trump had to make an appearance at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He met with the family of Patrick Mahomes and got pictures with Mrs. MAGA Mahomes and smiled and cheered. And then, of course, that whole team fell apart. And I know we have dear friends who are big Kansas City Chiefs fans. And I'm sure they hated the fact that this guy was like all big fans of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Listen, I'm a Saints fan, but when I found out that the Saints organization donated to the Trump campaign, I'm not putting on another Saints jersey ever.
I know. Now, meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles are like the bitter enemies of the MAGA movement.
Yeah.
Donald Trump has no love for the Eagles, and to watch them whoop some butt in front of him.
I loved it.
Man, I was all over that. So I'm happy. And the trend continued, by the way. I don't know if you follow hockey, but the NHL started something new this year called I may get the name wrong, but instead of an MVP, All-Stars game, they hold a 4-country tournament. So they take all their players who are from all over the world, and they say, all right, we're going to make a Team Canada, we're going to make a Team US, we're going to make a Team Europe, and I don't know what the 4th team is, but let's say there's 4 teams, and they play a little mini tournament and come out with a 4-country champion.
Okay.
And of course, Donald Trump and his administration calling Canada the 51st state, that obnoxiousness. Then, of course, Canada wins the whole thing. And Donald Trump, again, everything he touches loses.
God,
everything he touches turns to crap. So anyway, that was a fun article to see. If I were a sports team, I would stay away from the Trump administration.
Did he do
It's bad
something
luck.
did he do something with NASCAR too? Did he go?
Yeah, he did.
Thought so.
And after the first lap, there was a 74-car pileup. Did you not see that?
I did not.
27 drivers lost their lives.
No, they did not, Bill.
It's in the news. Go look it up.
It's not.
Do your own research.
I'm going to rely on you.
You'll see it for yourself. Well, anyhow.
Okay.
Let's hurry over to our newest segment.
Okay.
It's called Your South Carolina Representatives at Work. Turn your attention to the TV.
Oh, Lord.
Your South Carolina Representatives at Work.
Oh, Lord. It just gets worse. I'm sorry. It just gets worse.
Again, if you were watching us on our YouTube channel, you saw that I put together a little video intro for that segment to go along with the music.
Yeah.
So things are happening at the state capital of South Carolina, and the things that are happening there are happening in states all over the country. So this could be relevant no matter where you're listening from.
Yeah, true.
So let's tune in and listen and see how our representatives are actually representing us. Let's start with my favorite, Senator Tom Fernandez. You remember that guy?
Yes.
What do we know him for?
What did Fernandez do? Oh,
We call him Senator Boobs.
that guy. That guy.
Remember the guy that got up and praised Jesus and God and at the same time has the most obnoxious bumper stickers?
I couldn't think of the boobs, but that's what we know him for.
That is what we know him for. Anyhow,
That's a shame.
this senator from Dorchester stood up in a debate about the school voucher scam and bragged about his huge, well, we'll let you listen for yourself.
Oh, God.
Senator from Berkeley, Senator Fernandez, what purpose do you ask, sir?
Wondering if the senator from Horry County would yield for some questions.
Be glad to Senator yields questions. Senator yields questions.
Thank you, Senator Hembry, for putting this amendment on the floor. I'm very appreciative. Did you know, Senator Hembry, that I have a very large following on social media? They are very interested in this bill.
I was not aware of that.
Well, Senator, I do have a very large following.
Why would he care?
Did you know that these constituents and these citizens from South Carolina are saying that they don't want the government telling them how to raise their children? Are you aware of those comments?
I'm not aware. I haven't looked at your social media any time lately. So since this bill came up. So I can't confess. I can't share or confirm that.
No, I'm not. I'm not aware of your social media following, nor do I care. And why does that have anything to do with what we're talking about here? If I just answered your first question and said, no, I'm not aware of your social media following, how do you think I would have a positive or affirmative answer for your second question?
One thing, having watched hundreds of hours of these committee hearings,
I don't know how you're still sane.
It's entertaining as all get out. I gotta tell you, I pull out the popcorn and I watch. There is a rule in the Senate that when somebody is at the well behind the podium and they're giving their explanation or whatever, they can accept questions.
Yes.
So it's kind of like Jeopardy. If you sit up or stand up, you have to ask a question. So if you want to make a statement, you have to say it in the form of a question. So if he notices, he says, like he wants to say, hey, Senator Hembry, I got a big ass social media following. I am king of freaking Facebook, right? He wants to say that,
yes.
But he can't say that.
Yeah.
So he has to ask it in the form of a question. Did you know that I have a huge social media following?
Well, I do. I do.
You're right. So again, it's just so pathetic what he feels is valuable in this world. The social media empire represents reality.
Yeah.
So the guy at the well was Senator Greg Hembry. We heard a little bit from him last time because he's spearheading the Senate effort to take money from the lottery program and put it towards these school vouchers. Well, he and your friend, Senator Margie Bright Matthews, got into it a little bit.
Come on, Senator
I want you
Matthews.
to hear that they got a little snippy with each other. Here we go.
I'm just saying, when you enabled this voucher system under the law that had previously been struck down, the enabling language that you had said that it was to help those students that did not have the families who did not have the financial mean. But under the scenario we're talking about, you're creating a situation, a sliding scale that I previously had told you I was concerned about, where people who did not deserve the benefit of this would be able to gain this system, thereby stripping money away from where we wanted it to be. And don't you agree that that creates a problem?
I would put it this way: if you're concerned about trying to ensure that the children that are in greatest need are given priority going forward, I would ask you to support this amendment. Because in substance, all the amendment does is it creates a third tier of priority for children that are at or below 300% of poverty. It gives them a preference over other students that their parents make more money. So if you're concerned about that, if you want to ensure that the money goes to those most in need, then I would urge you to support this amendment.
Senator, I hate to interrupt you, but that's what I am.
I'm going to tell you what, don't, okay? Don't interrupt me.
Come on.
Or I'll quit taking questions.
Okay, that's fine. You're welcome to stop taking questions, but I'm trying to explain to you.
Nope.
Go ahead.
Let me finish, and then I'll be glad to take your question. So the only thing this does, I don't know how I can say it more clearly or plainly.
What a condescending son of a gun.
Oh, my God. I had to straighten up my sweater. If I had pearls on, I would clutch them because that was a little disrespectful. I don't know how I could say it any more clearer.
Listen, dummy.
Yeah, you not saying anything, sir. We're still saying, even with your amendment, it appears to be a glitch or a gap that will allow some individuals who don't need the assistance as much as the others to pull down on those. So it's not that she's not understanding, it's that he is not understanding.
Yeah, they have gone beyond any actual conversation in that chamber. Really, of all the videos that I watched, there is zero changing of the minds. There is no acceptance of new information or things you didn't think about. And hey, maybe we should, tighten this up or go about it a different way.
Yeah.
They come in there with a point of view and they are stuck on that point of view.
Yeah.
And they just talk past each other. They really do.
Yeah, we'll get nowhere with that.
The next couple of clips really got my blood boiling.
Oh, God.
Because it's a continued attack on public schools.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to stay on this theme. And I know, Jamil, you have a passion on this subject.
Yeah.
And I'm a former teacher as well, but I don't come close to your passion. But I want you to hear Senator Shane Massey. You know that name. He
I do.
represents
I
Edgefield,
do.
McCormick counties, etc.
Yeah.
I want you to hear what he said recently about public school advocates.
Mr. President, first off, just generally speaking, I've always been a public school guy. I went to public schools
You did?
my whole life, and I felt like I was pretty well prepared for what came next. Both of my children are in public school, and I'm pleased with that. And I am a rural guy, right? So I'm not some suburban fella. I'm a rural guy, and I'm pleased for the most part with where my children are. My wife serves on the school board. I'm a public school guy. We're a public school family. I think that's certainly beneficial to us. I do recognize, however, that there are others who are in different situations, and sometimes that doesn't apply. I will also say that as adamant as I was in support of public schools when I first arrived, there has been no group that has been more frustrating to me during my service than the public school advocacy groups. Because no matter what the problem is, the answer is always the same. If you just give us a little more money, we'll fix it. Right? No matter what the problem is, that's the solution every time. And it becomes exceedingly frustrating. And we could talk about a number of these issues.
Bill, my first question to him is, who exactly is he talking to? If you're talking to the same people, you might get the same responses. But if you broaden your pool, your target group, you may not get the same answers. I don't know if you remember, we recorded in our very first season, and I said that it's not necessarily all about the money. It may be about the resources, or it's about when you get the money. And they were talking about teacher salaries. And I had this conversation of, you take graduates that come out of college, and then you want them to go from when they're working weekly jobs and getting paid every week or bi-weekly, they sign a contract with a public school and then they get paid once a month. So sometimes the money issue is not necessarily the money issue. It's about timing, when that's coming, or it might be attached to resources.
Or there could be a lot of other things outside of money. I mean, safety, schools, classroom sizes, access to training programs.
Yeah. In his mind, he's saying that if there's a problem, that the thing that we say as, public school advocates to fix it would be to throw money its way. Well, I think that's what they say about everything that they have the problem
What
to.
is he looking to do with this school voucher stuff? He's looking to take that money and give it to a private school or a religious school. Are we saying they don't need money too?
Yeah.
They obviously do. Otherwise, they'd be doing this for free.
Correct.
So I don't buy this BS about, hey, it's the only answer is money.
Yeah.
I just think that he's not listening.
Yeah. I will tell you that talking to some of his constituents in his areas, the words are what we already know, is that when he started out, he was a really good guy, and he saw all parties involved, and they thought that he made good, sound decisions. But the perception of him now is not the same.
Oh, I've got your friend in mind, Paula. She's been texting me. Is she texting you?
No, she hasn't.
She's been texting me because she's reporting that she's texting Shane Massey, this guy here,
I bet she is.
and says, well, Shane says this. And I have to respond back to her. I go, well, here's the facts.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Yeah. He's not.
Let me play another clip for you here, just because you're not riled up enough yet. Okay. This is...
We're spending $14 billion.
By the way, this is Representative Jeff Bradley.
Okay.
$771 million a year on education in South Carolina. Public education. Public education that everybody's talking about. Our results are 44th in the nation. That being the case, can somebody please tell me why we should continue down the same path, doing the same things with no results? I mean, with no beneficial results. Now, I know that there are individuals who are able to use the public school system to their benefit. My family did the same thing. My wife was actually very good at it. But as policymakers who are responsible for making decisions to allocate these almost $15 billion and lousy results, what are we supposed to do?
All right, so let's dwell a little bit on what this guy said. So this is the common argument that you hear among this private school, religious school funding proponents. we're spending all this money on public schools, and here we are ranked at the bottom. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to yank that money away from the public schools and give it to these private and religious schools. Does that argument hold water? Well, let's take a look at another state with roughly the same population as South Carolina. South Carolina has 5.5 million people. Right next to us in the population list is Minnesota with 5.8 million. So we're similarly sized. South Carolina spends $14.7 billion on public education, as we just heard the good representative say, and is ranked 44th in the nation. Minnesota spends a little more, $15.7 billion, and they are ranked 17th. So here are two states, similar funding, similar size, vastly different results, and it's not about the funding or the schools that are the problem. I argue it's about the Republican supermajority that's been in power for almost 2 decades, who have taken their eye off the ball. And whenever they speak about education, it's about things like, look at their legislative priorities, DEI, CRT, bathroom access, 10 commandments on the wall. They want to have dedicated clergy in school districts now. These are the things that they're working from. You know what you don't find? Anything involving education outcomes. Minnesota, however, their democratically led legislators are laser focused on outcome-based programs, and hence that state with the same amount of funds is able to be in the top 20 in the nation.
So one of the issues I have with individuals who just quote the number, so it's easy for you to defend on the floor and say to people who know what the budget consists of, this is how much money we're spending. If you mention Minnesota and South Carolina, the interesting thing would be able to see how each state spends their money. What are the resources? Like, what is the part? Am I to say that $14 billion is too much to spend? I don't think anyone can make that accurate of an assumption unless they actually are looking at the bottom line of it. And I think you made a very valid point, and I don't know how people don't see this. It is not as if the Democratic Party has been in leadership making all of these decisions for years. It has been, South Carolina has been Republican-led for years. So if you as a citizen are pissed off about the way things are going, education, health care, whatever they are, you have a certain party to look at for that. And for some reason, they, in terms of citizens, aren't looking at it. And I think Republicans know that they have screwed up year over year over year. And the way you make sure nobody knows how bad you messed up is you make sure that you don't let Democrats get in to see what you've messed up. So you got to keep the House and the Senate as Republican as possible so you can keep covering up all this crazy stuff.
Oh, we've got cover-ups going on. The other thing, besides this money argument that gets me, is kind of the assumption when they walk into the room that private schools give you better educational results.
That's already been documented. That's not happening.
It isn't, but they walk in as if that is a known fact.
Yeah.
And there is a great article that we have a link to in our show notes from a media outlet known as The Conversation. And in there, one of the opening paragraphs states, "We are professors who focus on education law, with special interests in educational equity and school choice programs. While proponents of school choice claims it leads to academic gains, we don't see much evidence to support this view, but we do see the negative impact they sometimes have on public schools."
Yeah.
So you got to stop this argument that, hey, taking this money out of public schools and going to private schools is going to be better for the kids, because that whole premise is false.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we need to bring in our guest.
Okay.
AJ, is that you?
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hearing you brilliantly. Are you hearing us?
All right, good.
That's it.
Well, welcome. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm Bill. This is Jamil.
I'm Jamil.
Hey, guys. I've watched you guys from afar, so yeah. And Bill, I followed you, let's see, going back to right before the pandemic, because I believe I followed you when you were running for office and, you know, being one of those loud voices here in South Carolina that I was like, okay, great. There's somebody else here who actually sees what's going on. So, yeah. And I think I followed you on either Facebook or Twitter. I can't now remember which one. But, yeah, it's interesting how things come full circle.
Wow. Well, now I'm actually thinking you're somewhat of a stalker.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I'm a little nervous. I'm a little creeped out. I'm
It's not
thinking
bad.
about order of protection now.
It's not
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours. Anjene A.J. Davis is from
Yes.
Charleston, South Carolina, and is known throughout the state as a public education advocate,
Yay.
a racial justice warrior, a community leader, and a parent organizer. He is the founder, and you can see this in the background of his Zoom picture there, a founder of Lowcountry Black Parents Association and the co-founder of Pro-Truth, South Carolina,
Cool.
a statewide coalition working to protect and expand the teaching of diverse and inclusive history. AJ is dearly loved and respected by many in South Carolina and nationally. He's a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity.
He is.
A lot of people here in Greenwood belong to the Omegas, right? And he has leadership on several boards. In 2023, he received the Xi Phi Lambda Service Award in civic engagement and political activism. He makes me feel like I've been sitting on my hands doing nothing for years. So that's wonderful. And so, AJ, we welcome you to Black, White, and Blue in the South.
Welcome, AJ.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Now, I cribbed that whole biography from a GoFundMe page for AJ.
Really?
Yes. AJ, you want to talk about that a bit? And I want to know, I want an
Yeah.
update because I just learned about it while doing research on you. So tell us what happened last year.
Yeah, so last year, right about the end of February, I was actually scheduled to go to Austin to South by Southwest to speak on a panel for education. The title of the panel was basically, Are we headed to making 1984 a reality? And Democracy Forward, a great organization, had approached me about it. And I said, sure, if you guys convene a panel and it gets accepted, and it has to go through this process. And so apparently our panel idea got accepted. A couple days before that, I came down with what I thought was some flu-like symptoms. You know, me being a guy, and I know Mr. Jamil can attest to this, as can you, Bill. You know, we don't always listen to our bodies and, you know, do what we're supposed to do. And my partner, she kept telling me, well, you know, go to the doctor. And I tried to over-the-counter medicate, even though, you know, I was feeling terrible. I'm like, this must be a real bad strain of the flu. So finally on that Monday, I started feeling a little bit better. I said I'd go to the doctor the next day just to make sure I could return to work. Went to the ER, got out the car, was feeling very, very lightheaded, went in, said, I can't breathe. I got this feeling in my chest. And so they took me to the back, put me on the EKG. About 7 people rushed back in and said, either you're having or have had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
And so from there, I got rushed from the Roper Hospital, Roper St. Francis in West Ashley, to downtown Charleston, went to the cardiac ICU, had a cardiac cath installed. They had to blow up the angio balloon about 30 times. That's how much blockage I had.
Wow.
And I spent 2 days in their cardiac ICU. Long story short, the left side of my heart, in their words, was completely dead. The right side was pretty much carrying the work. And so that was the first time I had any diagnosed heart issues to my knowledge. My mother, who just recently passed, suffered with heart disease herself. And so the cardiologist said, yeah, you've been having a heart attack for a long time. So it is possible to have a heart attack for a long time and not know. And
Wow.
It's not like we see on television. You know, television kind of confuses us on how things really are.
You're not grabbing your chest, holding your arm up in the air, saying, I'm
Right.
coming. You know,
Right.
you didn't feel any of that stabbing pains.
And what we determined was I had been having a feeling in my back that I thought was a muscle spasm.
Right.
And the doctor said, because we don't recognize where our heart is actually positioned in our bodies, he said that was one of the signs. So today, where I am, my heart has not gotten worse, but it hasn't gotten better. So right now I'm about 2 weeks out of going for an assessment because they moved from a healing rehabilitation diagnosis to a life preservation. So with all the medications that I'm on, I'm capped out with that. My life expectancy currently with my heart, if they don't do anything, is 1 to 2 years. So I need to get a new heart in order to be able to do this great work that I'm doing. So I'll be going in about 2 weeks for them to do the workup on what a match looks like and all of that. And then Depending upon how quickly all that's done, I will then have to go into the hospital to wait. Waiting means, unfortunately, somebody has to transition in order for me to get their heart.
Wow.
So that's where we are today.
Well, if there's a man who's given his heart to others over the course of his life, it's AJ. And we were going to put a link to that GoFundMe in our show notes, and we'll promote it as well. So please give what you can. And I also encourage all of you out there. I mean, I'm a living organ donor myself. I've donated a kidney to somebody else. So if there's somebody out there who's willing to give their heart and just what are you looking at me like that for?
Because I thought you were going to go somewhere, Bill. I need you to stay focused.
I'm totally I'm encouraging organ donation. So everybody sign up to be an organ donor.
Okay.
AJ,
I know Bill, and I feel.
Listen,
this is like my little sister
love
here.
You guys and your banter. Listen, I get it.
I feel.
And I got to say too, I've
else.
been up to Greenwood quite a few times.
Oh yeah,
to your wonderful city. And my partner is finishing up a master's program at Lander.
Hey.
So I've been to Greenwood. Yep, I've been to Eggs Up. I've been to
you don't want to go to Eggs Up.
You don't
want
to go back there.
Oh, okay, I didn't know what happened recently, but
there's just do Eggs Up Greenwood in your Google search. You'll find a whole controversy. Basically, there's a well-respected black leader of youth in our community that went there and basically got thrown out after complaining about bad service. And this is the type of individual that does not have a single blemish on his character anywhere to be found. I mean, this is a guy who's proven himself over decades. And the fact that he got thrown out of this place led to a little mini boycott in the area.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is good to know.
Yeah.
That is good to know.
I will say that the follow-up is that the gentleman in question in the restaurant have made up, and there's been some, I would say, some steps towards normalcy and forgiveness.
Damage control is what's happening.
That's another way of looking at it.
Damage control.
So.
Well, I'm glad you guys told me that because we go there or of course the Chick-fil-A on the bypass.
Oh, you don't want to go to Chick-fil-A.
Oh no!
No, I'm kidding.
We just almost need to make you a to-go plate from our home when you come.
We need to give you a list. There's an appliance shop nearby.
How do you pronounce it though?
Stifles.
Stifles.
There is another story in the shopping plaza where there's an appliance outlet, locally owned, and then next in a couple stores down in this plaza is Granny Hands, which is a locally owned. I would say black cuisine, right? It's what is it, buffet?
It's Southern style. Southern food.
I've been there.
Okay, great food. Anyhow, there's a report that the owner of Granny Hands had a gun pulled on her by the owner of Stifles behind that plaza.
It was his son.
Oh, it was his son. Okay, thank you for correcting the record. Mm-hmm. So there's been another outrage call in this area. And there's some things happening in Greenwood.
And then there's the third one where
the car.
So there's this
when
young
did that happen?
I'm coming back from North Carolina, so I'm just catching up on it.
I think it was just yesterday, 2 days ago. Yeah.
So young lady's driving her car, older white man, not going to say gentleman because he lost all that credibility for me. So he is driving the car and he rolls down the window and he yells to this young lady, where did that car get the N-word? Where did that car get that N-word? And he kept saying it to her. And she was so flabbergasted. She said, What N-word? What are you saying?
She recorded this, by the way, so this video is out there, and they're trying to identify this gentleman.
He will be identified. He'll be identified, but yeah.
So we're starting to see real time just in the last 6 months.
Because of that, I'm wondering, and I said, so this week will be my week to lean heavy on these elected officials. I hadn't heard a word from the sheriff. I hadn't heard a word from the mayor. We got all these people sitting on.
Next question.
Yeah, they're quiet as church mice. And I believe what they're doing is they're having little private conversations with this guy. They know who he is. It's been publicized enough. Each one of these situations, I believe the true victim has been looked over and they've cradled or coddled the aggressor. And I'm waiting to see them say something on this. And they've even tagged Greenwood Police Department in the car incident. And nothing is being said or done. And these are the people that we have or have not elected to be in our positions. Either we voted for them or we did.
Well, going back to that Stifles appliance with the gun being pulled out, nothing happened there either, even after a police report.
No. In the final, I think the judge ruled that they were not going to pursue charges. So they closed the case. They opened the case again. And now I think they're at the point where he was justified in doing so because she was on his property.
Wow.
I think that's where they are now. And here's the kicker. When you're in a small town, you have so many of the lawyers that are in the pockets of the business people that are cutting up. They won't even defend the victims. So
of course
she
not.
had to go outside of
course.
here to try to find an attorney.
Right. Now, AJ, I will say that you had posted a video recently on the subject of using the power of the black purse to enact some outcome and change. And I think your premise was, good idea, but that's limited in its power. What was that you had said, if you don't mind repeating that?
So, yeah, it was this idea that capitalism and capitalist initiatives like, financial boycotts. And I think the video you're talking about recently was about black communities investing in cryptocurrency and whatnot, instead of focusing on the results of the last presidential election, and racism as a construct is the route to go. And listening to what you guys are saying, that to me is further evidence that increasing black economic worth and capacity is not going to be enough to address this. This has to come through policy,
yes,
legislation. These are the things, because if we're honest, there's a book that I encourage both of you to read. Well, it's two books. One is called Our Kind of People, Lawrence Otis Graham. It was a TV show briefly, but it basically chronicles the lesser known history of black wealth in America. People who were wealthy going back to pre-Civil War days, families, generational wealth, and how they perceived their role in America and their race relations. And then there's another book called Certain People by Stephen Birmingham. And that book also chronicles black wealth, but it gives a very unique perspective on how many of these people who were, in fact, wealthy for the time and even for today, they had what we perceive to be status, but their power and their connection to the greater masses of black people and the black community is very minimal. And so, for me, we have to have political engagement to address the things that you're talking about, and not just political engagement from a patronizing standpoint. It shouldn't be, these elected officials need to come and do something about this incident. We need to have elected officials committed to creating an environment, and dare I say the bad word, that is diverse, inclusive, and equitable.
Oh, I'm out of here.
Yep. Listen, I'm sorry I got your podcast shut down.
Yep, we're done.
Yeah.
Seriously, that's where we are. I mean, you guys had that up there, and I know you guys are aware of what happened down here in my neck of the woods when we had the Goose Creek and North Charleston police departments highlight black officers for Black History Month. Both of those pages had to get shut down.
Yep.
And it's amazing how people are surprised that the thing that we don't talk about openly and honestly is the thing that keeps flaring up. We don't talk about race.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to talk about race. In fact, we're taking the steps to erase race from public discourse. Right?
AJ, you had a Supreme Court Justice, Justice Roberts, the Chief Supreme Court Justice, come out and say that the problem about race is that we talk about race.
Well, not only that.
He says that's the source of the problem. And what a ridiculous...
Not only that, but your governor said it too. When we were pushing for the hate crime bill last executive session, right? He said no, because it's not an issue. But if you start to talk about it, we'll see more of that. Now, that's your governor.
And let's not leave out the true president of the United States, Elon Musk, in his interview with Don Lemon. He said the same thing. So it's like they all have the same talking points. And if you both remember, not just them saying it in that way, but if we go back 5 years, which it's crazy how it's been half a decade, when the pandemic started and everything, we saw here in South Carolina, the push for this anti-CRT, we saw the beginnings of that.
Yeah.
If you go look at the legislation that was being proposed, which is why Pro-Truth started, and I see Bill shaking his head, a lot of that language, if you go look at, and I still have some of our fact sheets, said exactly what is being said now. And I remember that's why we started Pro-Truth. That's why we started pushing to sound the alarm, because I said to people, this is a political Trojan horse. Education is the soft underbelly of our society. So if you position something as, oh, well, this is a benefit for kids, we're trying to protect children, we're trying to give parents rights, right? Parental rights. That's when all of this stuff started being crafted. But if you go look at the beginnings of that movement around the country, specifically in Southern conservative states, you now see the foundation for what has been built to now dismantle DEI and everything else.
I think that's important to mention, AJ, because I keep telling individuals, and I'm going to attribute this to headings, but if we keep just reading the headlines and not understanding what's happening on the inside of this, we will continue to miss the major setups for the transition. And so yet again, what you just described is how it's the inner workings. And then you put this little label on the top of it and we think, oh, that's years away. No, that's happening now. And we're preparing for a transition that we didn't even know we were in because we were focused on the top portion of it or the headlines of it. So I think that's a good point to mention there.
So, AJ, I want to rewind a little bit back into your history. Tell us about the Lowcountry Black Parents Association. I'm going to be specific. When did that start up and what was the trigger for you to create that group?
So right at the beginning of the pandemic, when everything shut down and we were in these uncharted territories, we recognized specifically here in Charleston County, a significant percentage of Black families with kids who are now having to go to hybrid learning, virtual learning, were all already at a distinct disadvantage, right? And
now,
so,
were you seeing this as a teacher or an employee within the school district, or just
employee within the school district, and someone who had been advocating prior to the shutdown? So, like, I had been advocating about what I call the onslaught of the ed reform campaigns that we experienced here in Charleston, right? So before Moms for Liberty, the national organization came about, we had seen what we called its precursors here in Charleston County. And so I recognized that Black families, especially as it related to educational advocacy, were left out and marginalized even further. So the idea behind it was to, one, recognize the importance of Black family advocacy in the public education space, and two, to provide a vehicle for drawing attention to the issues specific to Black students, Black families, in an empowerment sense, and not we are using them for something else, because that's what I feel like has happened in a lot of cases. When you hear school choice advocates, they always want to use the statistics of Black students, but they are not including Black families. And in many cases, they are misleading them about what is happening. And I was really incensed when this whole parents' rights campaign came up, because I had been talking about that for years prior, saying that there had been some, I guess you can say, promise in certain other states. Ironically, Alabama, believe it or not, had legislation prior to the pandemic, a couple years prior, about parents' rights in education. And I read through it. It's a PDF that I downloaded. And basically it was saying that public education needed to have a distinct partnership with parents and families in order to truly provide the benefit. Here in South Carolina, we have what's called school improvement councils, which a lot of people don't know exist or their purpose. But in a nutshell, school improvement councils are a vehicle that's sanctioned by the state law, not just something that you can do, but state law, that allows for the school to include parents, community members, maybe community leaders, to sit and understand the internal workings of each school from primary, elementary up to high school, and have input in things like budget allocations, understanding school climate and culture, and their input can be utilized to help shape and mold and change things in the school that may need to be changed.
But AJ, where does that leave? I mean, that sounds like it requires investment of time and commitment on the parents' part, right? Where does that leave the entitled Karens who just don't want their kids to read certain books. So what voice do they have? And that's where Moms for Liberty comes from, right? That's who they advocate for, because it's a lot easier to scream outrage than it is to actually spend time and get involved in the education system.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, this is why I give groups like Moms for Liberty and the other AstroTurf parent groups no credit, because they act as though they had been excluded from what's happening in public education, and nothing could be further from the truth. My business partner and fraternity brother, we had been advocating for an increase in School Improvement Council participation. We even went to Columbia to speak to the head of the School Improvement Council department, which, by the way, surprisingly, is woefully underfunded, and under-resourced. But we were like, listen, we need to advocate for these things to be utilized because it's already put in place. It has the benefit of legal backing. It is required. It is not whether or not schools want to have a school improvement council. They are required to have a school improvement council. And I said, every talking point that you hear from groups like Moms for Liberty is addressed in the role and responsibilities of a school improvement council. And some people were like, well, how is that different from a PTA or PTO group? I said, school improvement councils are required by law. PTAs and PTOs are not, and PTAs and PTOs don't have the, I guess you can say, authority to have oversight over school budgets, staffing, curriculum conversations, all of that. That's one of the major differences. SICs have more teeth than PTOs and PTAs.
You see why I follow AJ online?
That's good.
Like, my brain is already feeling larger just in the few minutes he's on with us.
He is right on it. I'm over here just in awe. That's it. That summed it up in a nutshell.
I didn't even know such a thing existed, and now I want to see, does Greenwood 50?
Well, I don't know about
51,
Greenwood, but
51 or 52 have this?
Anderson 4 has it, and they use that council.
Okay.
They use it
I've
really
not
well.
heard of such a council in our area, so I want to do some research on that.
And here's the thing. Each principal, and this is the other thing about it and why sometimes you don't see it. Principals have the authority for the establishment of the SIC, right? So principals are the ones that can compile it and the membership. But again, if you are not aware that it's supposed to be there, you won't know to ask. So it's kind of like one of those things by omission. And again, each school, because what the SIC's other role is that it creates what's called the School Improvement Plan. The School Improvement Plan is the document that outlines the existing data around the school, test scores, student-to-teacher ratios, percentage of students who have IEPs or 504s, and some other demographic information. Then it has what plans that school has to address any deficits that currently exist, as well as what resources will be utilized to address that. And this is all in this, and it's usually a very thick document. You, as a member of the community, are able to walk into any school and say, hey, I need to see your school improvement plan. And they're supposed to provide it.
I know what we're doing on Monday.
Yeah.
I want to see it. Thank
facts.
you.
That's fact.
Hey, I want to talk about your TikTok activism. So your style is, I don't know if it's unique, but it's something I can't do. Mainly, he just turns the camera on and just starts talking.
I like it.
Like me, I have to have the script ahead of time. I have to have clips to interject, and I have to
I don't think it's
post-edit
that
it.
you have to have it. I think that's
But that's
your
me.
preference.
That's my preference.
Yeah, your
but I'm
preference.
saying his style is something I couldn't do, is just flip the camera on and go. I've seen videos where AJ went for an hour and a half, unedited, no breaks.
Yeah.
Just and most of the time he goes to his car and does this. Why
Yeah, I was
is
gonna
this in
say-
your car?
I was going to say I like the car setup.
So for me, ironically, is usually I'm moving from place to place, and my car has become my fortress of solitude. You know, it's like my mind is always in motion, so the car is kind of symbolic of that. Like I'm going from point to point. So I find that one, I can control the noise in the car, and I usually just have my phone holder, or sometimes I sit it on the steering wheel, and it's usually like a decompression of whatever it is I might have been going through earlier. Like you guys, I'm always reading watching videos of like news reports. Like I consider myself a news junkie. Me and my late mom used to share that. I used to always scour through. But it's also, I want to be relatable to the people who will watch my video. I mean, I think most people will look at it and be like, oh, this guy's, just an everyday person and he's talking. And it's not like I don't appreciate the people who have the nice setups with the lights and the microphones. And that's great. I'm more so concerned about the content. I'm more so concerned about what it is you're seeing from me, you're hearing from me, and how you can process it. I feel like that's one of the challenges in the information age, is that a lot of people who present information present it in a way that's not relatable to a lot of people, and they make assumptions. They make assumptions that everybody knows a thing. And one thing I've learned in advocacy is that if you're going to be an effective advocate, never make assumptions about what people know. Ask, hey, do you understand this? Because a lot of times, just like anybody who's been a teacher or done a workshop, you will be talking about something in a room full of people and find out that nobody knew, but nobody was going to raise their hand and be like, hey, I don't understand that.
You're saying we're a nation of people who don't know things. Okay, that's a shocker. That's a shocker right there. Hey, I want to play one of your videos that you did recently because I found this message hit home. So I'm going to try here on the Zoom to share my screen.
I apologize, Mr. Mel. I apologize because I know
I
sometimes
found the filthiest one where you used all horrid language.
No, it's okay.
Seen a lot of videos, people talking about leaving MAGA, people talking about having regret. But I want to focus on the leaving MAGA first, and then I'll get to the people who regret voting for Trump, allegedly. Sometimes you can get caught up in something and over time understand that maybe that's not something you need to be involved with, right? Okay, cool, we'll go with that. But my question is, you're leaving MAGA, but what was it that caused you to go over there in the first place?
Come on with it. Come on now.
Were you a racist bigot before you joined MAGA, and MAGA was just a convenient label that you decided to find yourself within? You found community in that? What was it that you looked at regarding MAGA, regarding Donald Trump, before he was a 34-count convicted felon and twice impeached former president? What was it?
These are all good questions.
Yes.
That drew you to a man whose reputation preceded him, in the sense that he was a known charlatan and basically a con artist? What was that? And now for the people who are saying they're regretting their vote, are you regretting your vote because what you thought was going to happen to other people is happening to you and the people around you?
Yes.
Because what is happening was really predictable. And there were people trying to say that this is what was going to happen. There was even a whole manual on how it was going to go if Donald Trump won re-election. And the Republican Party, who is behind this, said, yeah, this is what we want. So if anybody wants to answer those questions, I might want to listen, but I'm just curious because, yeah, I mean, I can't stop you. Leave MAGA, that's fine. But why were you there in the first place? And for the folks who are saying they regret voting for Trump, or they are upset that these things are happening to them, as maybe federal employees or business owners, but you were okay when they were happening to other people.
Yep.
So what's the regret? Is the regret that it's you? And not the people that you feel deserve it? So, just food for thought.
So AJ, did you get any good answers to that question? You posed the question. Anybody come back and say, "Oh, good question. Here's my answer."
And honestly, but I didn't expect it. And a lot of times I ask these questions rhetorically because, social media oftentimes is a space and a place where people want to get up and pontificate and present themselves as one thing. And the whole leaving MAGA was something that had been irking my nerves from being here in South Carolina, which in some cases is MAGA country, right? And so we see these folks. We see them up close and personal. Many of them not even on social media. We see them in real life. It's the guy who has the lifted truck with the flags of Donald Trump on the back rolling through the parking lot. It's the person with the MAGA hat, at the grocery store and whatnot. So we see these people. And I go back and I have to give you credit, Bill. I remember when you were active in your campaign. I remember following your social media, and I appreciated the things that you were saying and doing, and the fact that you put real skin in the game, which is what I've always challenged people on, because I feel like there are a lot of intellectually dishonest folks when it comes down to politics. And in my assertion, there are more people who, as Mr. Jamil said, who are headline hunters as opposed to political theorists. They look for the headlines that gain the most traction, and they go with that. But if you ask them, hey, so what was turnout in the last non-presidential election year in your precinct? What were those numbers looking like? Who ran for your down ballot races? Were you involved in any of their campaigns? Did you know what the returns look like? I'm that person that says, I don't want to talk about the presidential elections. I want to talk about the local elections. I want to talk about the pattern. Can you give me the last 3 election cycle patterns that you know? Like, I know for me in my city, the last 3 election patterns for our mayoral and city council, our voter turnout has not cracked 20%. Okay. And what that also translates into in a city that is about 140,000 people, each of our city council districts hovers at about between 8,000, 9,000 registered voters. Out of that 8,000, 9,000 registered voters, the southern end of my city is predominantly African American. Where I live is predominantly African American. But the incumbent in my area has won his last 3 races, barely cracking 1,000 votes.
AJ, our city council here in Greenwood, our most recent election, again in a predominantly African American ward, I guess is what you would call it for the city, less than 5% turnout.
Yeah.
And they won with 80 votes. 80 votes.
Yeah.
Listen, 2022, and I showed a friend who works for one of the hospital systems here. We were talking because we were talking about what's happening with the DEI and everything. And I showed them the 2022 South Carolina election returns. 3.3 million people registered to vote, eligible voters. Henry McMaster won this state with 380-something thousand votes. 380,000. 17% turnout. 17% turnout. And it's laughable, and I'm pretty sure you guys can attest to this, when I hear people talk about Democrats in this state, right? And they try to put Democrats and Republicans in the same boat, like, oh, they're 2 sides of the same coin. I'm like, that coin has been flipping Republican for the last 25 years. We don't even see the other side. So what are you talking about? We have 9 congressional representatives, our 2 senators, and our 7 reps. One of them is Democrat.
Yeah.
And his district has been gerrymandered. And I've said this on my TikTok, guys, and it's laughable. But I graduated high school in 1994 in Allendale County. That's where I'm from.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Allendale County. So I know about the corridor of shame. All right. When that documentary came out, we was like, we could have told you that. 1994 was the first year that Congressman Clyburn was in the U.S. House of Representatives. I am almost 50 in a totally different county, and he is still my congressional representative.
And probably will be for the next 50 years. I don't see that changing.
Actually, he won't. He won't, because time will catch up with him. And
he's going to be 160 easy.
But this goes into where I've been harping. You got to prepare for a transfer. We know we can't ride this wave forever. So start now preparing for a transfer. So when we get to the voting box, we not looking saying, now who they say? Who is this? What have they done? What have they been doing? Build it now so people will be ready. And that's going to be another issue. I think Democrats do a really bad job as preparing for the transfer. We'll do it from a managerial role if we're not looking at a political office. We will train our replacement.
Listen,
we will transfer power.
We just need more Democrats to transfer in, let alone worry about transferring to another Democrat.
You can't get that until you dismantle this whole ideology that my vote doesn't matter. You've got to show up to figure out if it matters or not. And so our job is to work on dismantling that foolishness, I think.
And so here's what I want to say. I'm glad that you guys are touching on this. And I love when you touch on it on the show. If you look at South Carolina and go west, so let's go from South Carolina going all the way to Texas, right? And use that path. There is a consistent pattern when you look at state legislative makeups, right? South Carolina shares the same pattern as Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, with Republican dominance on both the state and national level. The only caveats in the South are Georgia and North Carolina. But when you go look at outside of Georgia and North Carolina, which are states that have what I consider to be major metropolitan cities where diversity is there, your economics is higher, your educational attainment is higher. The rest of those states, the rest of those southern states, including South Carolina, shares the distinction of having low educational attainment, low economic standards, right? And what that makes for is an easier way for Republicans and conservatives to maintain power through weaponized ignorance. Because if you don't know a thing and you don't know that you don't know that thing, then I'm not going to tell you, because then if I tell you, then you know that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing for said thing.
There's a bumper sticker or slogan there, weaponized ignorance.
That's what it is.
That's the key phrase I'm taking
literally,
away.
that is exactly like, so I know we tend to not like to talk about race, and I don't mean us, I mean this society.
Yeah.
But I always play with numbers. So there are 10 states that have a black population of at least 20% or higher, right? All but 2 are in the South. And the 2 that aren't, there's one that I found when I was, again, doing my research that technically is said to be in the South, but we don't claim it. But those 10 states, and again, I may be a little off, it's Delaware, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee. I forgot where my count is, but it's 10 states, and their black population percentage is 20% or higher. Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi have a black population of 30% or higher. And why is that significant? When we look at race and we look at political representation, Georgia is one of the only states that I listed, Georgia and North Carolina, that can boast that the black population has a greater representation commensurate with its population percentage. Mississippi, however, which has the highest black percentage, has basically zero political representation on a state and federal level commensurate with its population numbers, right? And so what that shows me is weaponized ignorance is never letting the people who have the numbers know that they have the numbers. If you keep repeating the narrative that, oh, this is a red state. Oh, this is a red state. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. And then you realize, and now mind you, I'm just talking about the black community. So if we add non-black, non-Republicans, now you go from 30% to 50% and up. And so, but if you continue to paint this picture that these spaces are insurmountable because, oh, well, they've been red our entire lives. No, that's not it. You don't want the people with the power to know that they have the power.
Well, AJ, we're going to wrap up our time here.
Oh my goodness,
because
AJ.
this is the time just totally slipped away from us because you're just dropping wisdom bombs left and right.
AJ, man, AJ's going to be around too.
Is there anything you want to leave us with? Anything you got going on? You want to notify our audience about? This is your chance.
Yeah.
Sure. Based on what we talked about, now I hope the folks that's watching this continue to support podcasts like this, because these are going to be the places that you get your information from. But my thing that I want to leave people with is to not let national media headlines discourage you from what you can do to take action. 2026 is the year of change. I know everybody likes to say every year, but 2026 will be the year that folks determine what they truly stand for. Every race in every state needs to be absolutely contested. If you are a Democrat, you need to be contacting your Democratic leadership right now to ask and demand every race be contested, that the resources be put into every race. We can no longer take the archaic view that the South belongs to the Republicans and just live with that.
Thank you.
Every race needs to be contested. And that's what I'll leave folks with.
Well, AJ, thank you very much. And everybody will be putting links to AJ's social medias and the AJ story in our show notes.
Yeah.
And we have been absolutely blessed with your presence. You've exceeded all of our expectations.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm disappointed in is that you're not driving around in your car talking to us. I was kind of hoping for some car action, but maybe next time.
No. I wanted to make sure I was sitting in my house that I could give you guys my full attention.
Yeah.
You see how his hands are always in the air? He does that while driving too and talking. Yeah, his hands are like this while you can see the cars going by in the background. It's quite wild, and it's got me fascinated. All right, AJ, thank you for your time. We wish you the best, man.
Thank you, AJ.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Next time you're in Greenwood, give us a holler.
Yes.
I will.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Bye-bye. All right.
Oh, my.
What an amazing conversation.
Gosh, we could go like another round.
Yeah, easily. And that's a wrap for this episode of Black, White, and Blue in the South. Thank you, AJ, for joining us today.
Thanks, AJ.
We really appreciate your constant activism and the example you've set for us all. We all should wish you the best of luck in your health recovery. We hope you have enjoyed what you've heard. Please take a quick minute and leave us a rating and a review of our show. It costs you nothing, and yet it means everything to us.
It does.
We haven't had a review yet this year. We have not.
Okay, we're requesting.
I mean, we still have 100% 5-star ratings, but nobody new has decided to write a little blurb about our show. So please break the cycle and give us something positive to go off of. If you do, it will help secure some daycare services for little X so that Daddy Musk isn't forced to bring him to work and embarrass everyone at the Oval Office.
Can we get someone to help clean that office desk too?
God, I just got sick. Somebody had to do that job, by the way. Somebody had to do that job.
Go get the booger.
Little X booger. If you are a blue dot in a red sea, keep the faith. Keep up the hard work. Change only happens over many years of
Literally,
work
go get the boogers.
dedication. As William Fulbright once said, I'm trying to give a serious quote here.
Sorry,
talking boogers.
I'm ready.
As William Fulbright once said, we have the power to do any damn fool thing we want to do, and we seem to do it about every 10 minutes.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
All right, Jamil, until next time.
Thanks, Bill. The end.
The preceding podcast is a product of Big Media, LLC, and is copyright 2025, all rights reserved.